How does a man react when his own son cuts off his access to money and waits for him to crawl back begging? Why did I stay silent for a full month after being financially erased? And what did my son see at my gate that made his legs start shaking before he even rang the bell? Before we go any further, take a second to subscribe, hit the hype button, and like the video. It really helps the channel grow. And tell us in the comments, what would you do in this situation? The card reader beeped twice and flashed red. I stared at it, my hand still holding the plastic against the sensor, waiting for the machine to correct itself. It didn't. The cashier, a young woman with tired eyes and a name tag that read Phoenix, glanced up from her register with an expression I'd seen before. Polite concern mixed with impatience. She'd watched dozens of declined cards today, probably. Mine was just another. "You want to try it again?" she asked. I swiped it through the reader a second time, slower, making sure the magnetic strip made full contact. The machine beeped again. Red light. Declined. Behind me, someone shifted their weight. A cart squeaked. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting everything in that particular grocery store brightness that makes everyone look slightly unwell. "Maybe try another card?" Phoenix suggested, her voice carefully neutral. I didn't have another card. This was the account. The primary account. The one Evan had convinced me to consolidate everything into 3 years ago, when my back first went out and I'd been too medicated to argue about financial efficiency. He'd said it would be simpler. Everything in one place. Easier to manage. Easier to track. I should have asked who'd be doing the managing. I pulled out my wallet, the leather one that was going on 15 years old, worn soft at the edges, and counted out cash. 3 20s, a 10, and 3 ones. $43 for $37 worth of groceries. The person behind me sighed audibly when I started counting coins for the difference. Phoenix bagged everything in silence. I took the bags and walked out into the parking lot where the November air had that sharp quality that promised snow before the week was out. My truck, the old one, the one with rust creeping up from the wheel wells and a passenger door that didn't quite align anymore, sat in the third row. I loaded the groceries in the back seat and sat behind the wheel for a moment, staring at the dashboard. The card shouldn't have declined. I'd deposited a check 2 weeks ago from the Morrison job, a bathroom renovation that had taken 3 days of careful tile work. The check had been for $1,800. Even after utilities and the mortgage payment, the small mortgage payment on a house that was nearly paid off, there should have been over $1,000 in that account. I started the engine and drove home. The house looked exactly as I'd left it that morning. Small. Ordinary. The kind of single-story ranch that filled entire neighborhoods in this part of town. Beige siding, brown trim, a front yard that needed mowing but could wait another week. I'd bought it 26 years ago, back when Evan was 3 and my wife was still alive and the future had seemed like something that would unfold logically, predictably. Life rarely works that way. Inside, I put the groceries away, milk in the fridge, bread on the counter, canned soup in the cupboard, and then opened my laptop. The old Dell that took 3 minutes to boot up, fan whirring like it was struggling with the effort. I'd bought it 6 years ago, and Evan kept saying I should upgrade, get something faster, something more efficient. I kept not doing it. The bank website loaded slowly. I entered my username, my email address, the one I'd been using since email became necessary, and then my password. The one I'd set up 2 years ago and hadn't changed since because I'd written it down on a sticky note in my desk drawer, and I knew if I changed it I'd forget the new one. Invalid credentials. I tried again, typing more carefully. Same result. I tried variations. Capitalized letters in different places, added numbers. Nothing worked. I called the bank. The automated system routed me through 6 menus before connecting me to a human being. A woman with a pleasant voice and a slight accent I couldn't place answered and asked how she could help. "I can't log into my account," I said. "My password isn't working." "I can help you with that, Mr. Brentor. Let me pull up your account. Can you verify your social security number?" I gave it to her, heard her typing. "Okay, I see your account here. It looks like your login credentials were changed last week, November 8th. Today was November 15th. Changed by who?" More typing. A pause. "By Evan Brentor. According to our records, he has primary administrative rights on this account." Primary administrative rights. The phrase sat in my mind like a stone. "What does that mean exactly?" I asked. "It means he can make changes to account access, withdraw funds, modify settings. You're listed as a secondary account holder." Secondary, on my own account. The account my paychecks had been deposited into for 3 decades. "Can you reset my password?" I asked. Another pause. This one longer. I'm sorry, Mr. Brentor, but password resets for secondary holders need to be approved by the primary administrator. You'll need to contact Evan Brentor directly to restore your access. I thanked her, habit, manners beaten into me by my mother 40 years ago, and hung up. The kitchen was very quiet. Outside, a dog barked. Once, twice, then silence. The refrigerator hummed, the wall clock ticked. Normal sounds. The sounds of a normal Thursday afternoon in a normal house. Nothing felt normal. I sat at the kitchen table and stared at my phone. Evan's number was third on my speed dial, right after the tile supplier and the pharmacy. I looked at his name for a long time. Evan Brentor, my son, 29 years old, MBA from a state school he'd been proud of. Married to Laura for 2 years now, working in some corporate finance position that I'd never fully understood, but that seemed to pay well enough for them to lease a nice apartment downtown. I deleted his contact. Not out of anger, not out of spite, just out of a sudden clarity that calling him would be exactly what he wanted. That he'd done this deliberately, that he was waiting for me to call, to apologize for something, to negotiate for access to my own money. I wasn't going to do that. Instead, I walked to the calendar hanging beside the refrigerator. The paper kind with photographs of national parks that Lara had given me last Christmas, back when she still made eye contact at family dinners. Back before whatever had shifted between us had fully shifted. I flipped to December and circled a date. December 23rd. 38 days from now. No explanation, no note. Just a red circle. My back ached as I stood up from the table. The chronic pain that had lived in my lower spine for 5 years now, ever since the fall. The fall that had changed everything. 8 feet from a ladder to a concrete floor, landing wrong, something in my spine compressing in a way that never fully uncompressed. The doctors had said I was lucky. Lucky that I could walk, lucky that I had sensation in my legs, lucky that I could still work, if I was careful. Some days the luck felt questionable. I took 2 pills from the bottle on the counter. The prescription ones, not the over-the-counter ones I used when I was trying to convince myself the pain wasn't that bad, and swallowed them dry. Then I walked to the bedroom and lay down on top of the covers, staring at the ceiling. Evan probably expected me to call within an hour, maybe 2. He'd be sitting in his apartment, phone nearby, waiting for my name to appear on his screen, waiting for the apology, the negotiation, the surrender. I closed my eyes and went to sleep instead. It hadn't started out this way. When Evan was 12, he used to help me load tile samples into the truck. He'd carry the smaller boxes, the ones with the decorative pieces, the mosaics and borders and accent strips. He'd ask questions about the work, why certain tiles needed different adhesives, how to calculate square footage, why some patterns required more cutting than others. I'd thought he was interested in the craft. Maybe he genuinely was, back then, before high school, before college, before he met Laura's family with their investment portfolios and their country club memberships and their opinions about what constituted real success. The shift had been so gradual, I almost hadn't noticed it happening. It started after the accident. I hated calling it an accident, but I didn't have a better word for it. I'd been installing tile in a commercial kitchen, reaching for a stack of boxes on a high shelf, when the ladder shifted. Just a few inches, just enough. I'd fallen 8 feet and landed on my left side, my spine compressing, something inside me breaking in a way that would never fully heal. The workers' compensation had covered the hospital stay, the surgery to stabilize the vertebrae, the initial physical therapy. But it didn't cover the months afterward, when I couldn't work at full capacity, when every job took twice as long because I had to stop and rest, had to manage the pain, had to accept that my body no longer worked the way it used to. Evan had just finished his MBA. He'd shown up at the hospital 2 days after the surgery with his laptop and a folder full of printed spreadsheets. "Dad," he'd said, pulling a chair close to my bed, "we need to talk about your finances. I've been looking at your paperwork, and it's a mess. Let me help organize things." I'd been grateful. The pain medication made it hard to think clearly, turned my thoughts sluggish and unreliable. The idea of someone else handling the bills, the insurance claims, the daily logistics of keeping a household running while I recovered, it had felt like a gift. So I'd signed the papers he put in front of me. Power of attorney for financial matters. Temporary at first, he'd said, just until I was back on my feet. Then it became permanent. Then the joint account access became primary account access. Then my name moved from the top of the paperwork to somewhere in the middle. He'd said it was for my protection, for efficiency, for simplification. For a while, it had worked. The bills got paid on time, the insurance claims got filed correctly, the house stayed afloat while I focused on healing, on rebuilding my strength, on learning to work through pain that the doctors said would never fully go away. But the help had come with conditions I hadn't noticed at first. Small things. Comments that seemed harmless in isolation but accumulated weight over time. Dad, maybe you should slow down with the work. You're not 25 anymore. Do you really need that truck repair? I can find you a more economical option. Let me handle this phone call. You know how you get confused with the technical terms. I wasn't confused. I'd been running my own jobs, managing my own clients, handling my own business logistics since before Evan was born. But he'd say these things in front of other people, in front of clients, in front of suppliers, in front of Laura, and I'd started to notice how they'd look at me differently afterward, like I was diminished, like I was fading, like I was already halfway gone. The first message from Evan had arrived 2 days after the card declined. Dad, we need to talk about your attitude lately. Call me. I hadn't called. The second message came the next day. Ignoring me won't solve anything. I'm trying to help you. I didn't respond to that one either. The third message arrived yesterday morning. When you're ready to apologize and discuss this like an adult, you know where to find me. Until then, maybe use this time to think about how you've been acting. Acting. As if asking to access my own money was somehow childish. As if wanting basic autonomy over my own life was a behavior problem that needed correction. I'd saved all the messages but hadn't replied to any of them. Lara had sent one too, late last night. Evan is really hurt by this. He's only ever tried to help you. This isn't like you. I'd stared at that message for a long time. This isn't like you. What did that mean? What version of me was she comparing this to? The grateful patient in the hospital bed? The diminished father who'd let his son take over? The quiet, compliant figure who'd stopped arguing because arguing took energy I didn't have? Maybe this wasn't like that version of me. Maybe that was the point. I didn't respond to Lara either. The tile warehouse was busy on Tuesday morning, the parking lot half full of contractor trucks and work vans. November had brought a surge of indoor renovation projects. People wanting work finished before the holidays, before winter really set in and made outdoor construction impractical. I pulled into a spot near the loading dock and sat in my truck for a moment, working up the energy to move. The pain was manageable today, a dull, persistent ache in my lower back rather than the sharp, stabbing sensation that sometimes made me stop mid-step and breathe through gritted teeth. I'd learned to grade the pain on a scale over the past 5 years. 1 meant barely noticeable, something I could ignore completely. 10 meant unable to function, bedridden, needing emergency intervention. Today was a 5. Tolerable, workable. I could get through the day without the heavy medications, just the regular prescription pills, and maybe some over-the-counter supplements if it got worse. 5 was a good day. Inside, the warehouse smelled like concrete dust and adhesive, and the peculiar chemical scent of sealed tile boxes stacked floor to ceiling. Rows of samples lined the walls: ceramic, porcelain, natural stone, glass, even some specialty materials I'd never worked with but that younger contractors were starting to request. I'd worked with most of them over the years, knew their properties, their quirks, their individual requirements for installation. Mike, the warehouse manager, waved at me from behind the counter. He was in his 40s, barrel-chested, perpetually sunburned, always wore the same company polo shirt in slightly different shades of blue, depending on which one was clean that day. Nate, got that custom order you requested. Came in yesterday afternoon. I'd almost forgotten I'd placed that order. 2 weeks ago, before the card declined, before Evan locked me out, before any of this started. It was for a bathroom renovation in a client's vacation home up in the hills, detailed work that required precision cutting, careful pattern alignment, the kind of installation that took patience and experience and couldn't be rushed. Thanks, Mike. Put it on my account. Already done. You want help loading? I've got it. He nodded, then paused, leaning against the counter. His expression shifted slightly, became more thoughtful. Hey, I heard you might be taking on that new construction project out on Hillside Avenue. That true? I hadn't heard about any project on Hillside Avenue. The name was familiar, a developing area on the east side of town where old industrial buildings were being converted to mixed-use spaces, but nobody had contacted me about work there. Who told you that? Mason Hale. He was in here last week asking about you, said he's developing a mixed-use building out there, wants custom tile work in all the residential units and the common areas. High-end stuff. Apparently you're the only installer he trusts for that kind of volume. Mason Hale. I hadn't thought about that name in years. We'd worked together 5 years ago, maybe 6, on a condominium development downtown. 12 units, custom bathrooms, and kitchens in each one. Lobby work with intricate mosaics that had taken weeks to complete. He'd had demanding standards, walked the job site daily, checked every corner, questioned every choice, but he'd been fair, paid on time, respected the work. No games, no negotiation after the fact, no trying to nickel and dime on the final invoice. We'd finished that project 2 weeks early despite the complexity, and he'd sent me a case of bourbon as a thank you. Good bourbon, too, not the cheap stuff. I'll give him a call, I said. You should. Guy's got serious money backing him now. Private investors, I heard. This could be a 6-month contract if you want it. Maybe longer if the project expands. Mike went to pull my order from the back while I walked through the display area, looking at the newer sample installations. The styles had changed over the years. Bigger tiles now, less grout line, more natural stone looks, even in porcelain. Clients wanted different things than they had 10 years ago, but the fundamentals were the same. Proper substrate, correct adhesive, precise layout, attention to detail. I'd kept up with the changes, read the trade magazines, attended manufacturer seminars when they came through town, learned the new materials and techniques. That was part of the job, part of staying relevant in a field that was constantly evolving. Evan had never understood that. He'd seen tile work as static, unchanging, something that didn't require ongoing education or professional development. Just manual labor, repeated endlessly. He'd never grasped that craftsmanship required constant learning, constant adaptation. Mike returned with a flatbed cart loaded with boxes. Custom mosaic tile, just like you ordered. You working alone on this job, or you got help? Alone. It's detailed work. Easier to do it myself than train someone else. Your back holding up okay? Good enough. He helped me load the boxes onto the cart and wheel it out to my truck. We worked in comfortable silence, the kind that comes from years of professional familiarity. Mike had been at this warehouse for 15 years. He'd seen contractors come and go, businesses start and fail, reputations rise and fall. You know, he said as we loaded the last box, I've worked with a lot of installers. Some are fast but sloppy, some are careful but slow. You're one of the few who's both fast and precise. That's rare. Experience, I said. More than that. It's giving a damn. Plenty of guys with experience phone it in. He closed my truck's tailgate. That's why Mason asks about you. That's why contractors request you specifically. It's not just that you've been doing this a long time, it's that you still care about getting it right. I drove away from the warehouse thinking about what Mike had said, about reputation, about the difference between doing a job and doing it well, about the accumulated weight of 30 years of caring about quality. Evan didn't know Mike, didn't know that Mike recommended contractors to builders, that his opinion carried weight in the local construction community, that a good word from him could mean the difference between steady work and scrambling for jobs. Evan knew spreadsheets and accounts. He didn't know relationships. I stopped at a red light and pulled out my phone, found Mason Hale's number in my old contacts. I hadn't deleted it, just hadn't called it in years. Sent a quick text. Mike at the warehouse said you were asking about me. Give me a call when you have time. The response came back before the light turned green. Nate, yes, can you talk now? I pulled into a parking lot and called him. Mason, been a while. Too long. Listen, I've got a project I think you'd be perfect for. You have time to talk details? I've got time. He explained the Hillside Avenue development, a 4-story building, ground floor commercial space, 3 floors of residential units above, 8 apartments total, ranging from studios to 2 bedrooms, custom tile in every bathroom and kitchen, decorative work in the lobby and hallway common areas, durable commercial-grade flooring in the retail spaces. Timeline? I asked. 6 months for the tile work, starting mid-December. Maybe more if we expand to a second building next year. I'm budgeting for quality, not speed. I want it done right. What's the pay structure? I was thinking materials plus labor hourly, or we can do it as a contract bid if you prefer. Your choice. I trust you either way. I thought about it. Hourly meant less risk, but more administrative tracking. Contract bid meant more upfront calculation, but cleaner execution. Contract bid, I said. Give me 3 days to walk the site and put together a proposal. Perfect. When can you come look at it? Tomorrow afternoon? I'll meet you there at 2. Text me when you're close. After we hung up, I sat in the truck and stared at the phone. Mason Hale, a 6-month project, potentially $80,000 or more depending on the scope and materials. Steady, reliable work through winter and into spring. Work that had nothing to do with the account Evan controlled. I drove to the vacation home job site and spent the afternoon doing the bathroom installation I'd been hired for. Careful measurements, precise cuts. The mosaic pattern was intricate, a geometric design that required each piece to align perfectly with its neighbors. The kind of work that couldn't be rushed, that required patience and focus. The homeowner stopped by around 4 to check progress. She was in her 60s, retired, using this vacation property more and more as she spent less time in the city. "It's beautiful," she said, looking at the half-completed wall. "Exactly what I wanted." "Should be finished by Thursday," I said. "Friday if the grout needs extra drying time." "Take your time. I'm not in a rush. Quality matters more than speed." After she left, I kept working until the light started to fade. My back had climbed from a 5 to a 7 by then, the sustained bending and reaching taking its toll. I packed up my tools carefully, cleaned the work area, covered the unfinished sections with plastic sheeting. On the drive home, I stopped at a pharmacy and refilled my prescription. The pharmacist, a young woman I didn't recognize, asked the standard questions. How was the pain? Any side effects? Was the medication helping? "It helps," I said. She handed me the bag. "You're due for a refill in 30 days. Want me to set up auto refill?" "No thanks. I'll call when I need it." I didn't like auto refill. Didn't like the assumption that I'd need these pills forever, that the pain would never improve, even if it was probably true. At home, I made a simple dinner, pasta with jarred sauce, the kind of meal that required minimal effort, and ate at the kitchen table while reviewing my notes for the Mason proposal. I sketched out the scope on a legal pad, calculated square footage for each space, estimated materials based on current supplier pricing, factored in labor hours based on similar projects I'd completed. The numbers were rough, but they gave me a starting point. I'd refine them after walking the site tomorrow. My phone buzzed around 8, a text from a number I didn't recognize at first until I read the message. "Dad, Evan is really upset. He says you're not answering his calls. Is everything okay? Laura." I stared at the message. She'd sent it from her own phone, not Evan's. That was deliberate. A separate approach, probably coordinated but designed to seem independent. I didn't respond. Another text came through 10 minutes later, this one from Evan's number. "This is childish. Call me." I saved both messages and turned my phone face down on the table. Instead, I went back out to the garage, opened the filing cabinet again, pulled out more folders, spreading them across my workbench. I spent 2 hours organizing them chronologically, creating a timeline of independent work that stretched back decades. Every contract told a story: the Morrison renovation in 2019, the office building lobby in 2017, the series of custom homes in 2015, the commercial kitchen installation in 2012, on and on, year after year, a continuous record of independent operation. I found invoices I'd forgotten about, letters from satisfied clients, referrals that had led to other jobs, a complete paper trail of business relationships that had existed parallel to and independent of whatever account structure Evan thought he controlled. One folder contained correspondence with other contractors, recommendations I'd written for them, recommendations they'd written for me, a network of professional relationships built over 3 decades. These people knew my work, they trusted my word, they recommended me to their clients. Evan had never met any of them. I pulled out my phone and started making a list. Every contractor, every client, every supplier who'd worked with me directly. The list grew longer than I expected. 40 names, 50, 60. Each name represented a relationship, a history, a foundation of trust that couldn't be reduced to a spreadsheet or controlled through a bank account. By midnight, I had a comprehensive map of my independent professional network. People who called me directly, people who paid me directly, people who'd been doing business with me for years, some for decades, without any involvement from my son. I carried the folders back inside and laid them on the kitchen table. Tomorrow I'd walk the Mason site. Thursday I'd finish the vacation home bathroom. Friday I'd write and submit the hillside proposal. And through all of it, I wouldn't call Evan, wouldn't apologize, wouldn't negotiate for access to money I didn't need. I'd just keep working, keep building, keep proving that independence wasn't something granted by permission. It was something earned through decades of reliable, quality work. The card had declined 12 days ago. Evan had been waiting 12 days for me to break, to call, to surrender. He'd be waiting a lot longer. I took my evening pills and went to bed. Tomorrow was Wednesday. The Mason site walk, more progress on the vacation home, more pieces falling into place. The pain in my back was an 8 now, maybe higher. But pain was manageable. Pain was temporary, even when it was chronic. What mattered was the work, the relationships, the reputation, the things Evan had never understood couldn't be controlled. Arthur Klein had been my accountant for 18 years. I'd found him through a recommendation from another contractor back when my taxes had gotten complicated enough that I'd needed professional help. He was 61 now, gray hair thinning at the crown, glasses perpetually perched on his nose, the kind of man who wore button-down shirts and khakis every single day regardless of season. His office was in a strip mall between a dry cleaner and a physical therapy clinic. The waiting room had uncomfortable chairs and outdated magazines. The walls were beige. Everything about the space said, functional, not fancy. Arthur appeared in the doorway to the back office, coffee mug in hand. "Nate, haven't seen you in a while. Your son's been handling most of the quarterly filings." "That's what I wanted to talk about." I'd brought 3 folders. Arthur led me back to his office, a small room with a desk, 2 chairs, and filing cabinets lining every wall, and gestured for me to sit. I placed the folders on his desk. "What am I looking at?" he asked. "Independent work contracts, going back 20 years. I need to know what they mean legally." Arthur put on his reading glasses and opened the first folder. He worked through it methodically, occasionally making notes on a yellow legal pad. The wall clock ticked. Outside, a car alarm went off briefly, then stopped. Arthur kept reading. He pulled out a contract from 2008, studied it, made a note, pulled out another from 2012, compared them. His expression remained neutral, but I could see him thinking, processing, building connections. After 45 minutes, he looked up. "This is interesting," he said carefully. Arthur was always careful. It was one of the things I appreciated about him. "How interesting." "These contracts predate your joint account arrangement with your son. They're exclusively in your name, personal service contracts, not business entity contracts. And these payment records," he tapped a stack of invoices. "These show consistent, independent income. Where was this money deposited?" I'd been thinking about that. I opened a separate business account about 12 years ago, for overflow work. I'd forgotten about it until I started going through these files. "Do you still have access to that account?" "I don't know. I haven't checked in years." Arthur pulled out his keyboard and logged into his accounting software. "What was the account number?" I gave it to him from memory. One of those things that sticks even when you think you've forgotten it. He typed, waited, typed again. "It's still open," he said. "Small balance. About $8,300. $8,000. I'd thought it would be empty. Has anyone else accessed it?" Arthur scrolled through the screen. Last deposit was 6 years ago. No withdrawals since then except the monthly maintenance fee. No additional signers listed. It's entirely in your name, Nathan Brentor, sole proprietor. "Can my son access it?" "Not unless you've given him signing authority." "Have you?" "No." "Then it's protected?" Arthur leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled. "Nate, what exactly is going on?" I told him. The card declining, the locked account, the password change, the messages from Evan, the 30-day silence. Arthur listened without interrupting. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. "That's financial abuse," he said finally. "You know that, right?" "I know what it is." "Are you planning legal action?" "I'm planning independence." Arthur nodded slowly. "Then we need to have a longer conversation, and I need to understand what you're willing to do." We talked for 3 hours. Arthur explained the difference between joint accounts and independent business structures. He walked me through LLC formation, sole proprietorship documentation, the legal requirements for formalizing a business that had been operating informally for decades. He showed me how to reroute income, how to update vendor payment information, how to establish clean separation between personal and business finances. He pulled up templates on his computer, showed me sample operating agreements, explained filing requirements with the state, the IRS, the local business licensing office. "This will take time," he warned. 2 weeks minimum to get everything filed and processed. Maybe 3. "I have time. And your son will notice eventually. Once payments stop flowing into the account he controls." "Let him notice." Arthur made a list. Documents to file, forms to complete, registrations to update. He estimated costs, filing fees, registration fees, legal review fees. All of it came to less than $1,500. "I can cover that," I said. "From the old account?" "From cash work I've been doing. Under the table jobs, small renovations, repairs." Arthur raised an eyebrow. "I'm not going to ask about tax implications." "Probably better if you don't." He printed out a preliminary checklist. 12 items, each one with subtasks and deadlines. He went through them one by one, explaining what each meant, what documentation I'd need, what potential complications might arise. "Start with the LLC formation," he said. "I'll prepare the paperwork tonight. You can come back tomorrow to sign everything. After that, we'll update your business registration with the state, get you an EIN, open a proper business checking account at a bank where your son has no access." Which bank? Your choice. But I'd recommend somewhere he doesn't know about. Somewhere you can establish the account in person, with documentation proving you're the sole owner. I thought about it. There's a credit union out near the warehouse. I've driven past it 1,000 times. Perfect. Small, local, personal service. Exactly what you want. Arthur made another note. I'll call them this afternoon. Let them know you'll be coming in. They'll need your LLC documentation, your EIN confirmation, and at least 2 forms of ID. I can do that. One more thing. Arthur pulled out another folder from his desk drawer. These are sample vendor notification letters. You'll need to contact every client, every supplier, anyone who sends you payments. Let them know your banking information has changed. Give them the new routing and account numbers. How many notifications are we talking about? Arthur looked at my contract folders. Based on what I see here, probably 30 to 40 active relationships. Maybe more. I stood to leave. My back had stiffened from sitting too long. The pain had crept up from a 5 to a 7, maybe higher. Arthur noticed me wince. You okay? I'm fine. Nate. He waited until I looked at him. I don't know what happened between you and Evan. That's family business, not my business. But whatever you're planning, make sure it's clean. No gray areas, no vulnerabilities. Because if he tries to fight this, you need to be absolutely bulletproof. It'll be clean, I said. I came back the next day to sign the LLC formation papers. Arthur had everything ready. Articles of organization, operating agreement, initial member resolution. I signed where he indicated, initialed where he marked. He notarized everything, made copies, filed the originals in a folder with my name on it. This goes to the state today, he said. Express filing. You'll have your certificate of formation by Friday. And then? Then we moved to phase 2. EIN application with the IRS, business license with the city, bank account opening, vendor notifications. I spent the next 2 weeks working, not just on tile installations, though I had those too, the vacation home bathroom, a kitchen backsplash for a repeat client, some repair work in an older building downtown, but also on paperwork. I met with Arthur 6 more times over those 2 weeks. Each meeting focused on a different aspect of the restructuring. We reviewed the LLC documentation when it arrived. Applied for the EIN online, received confirmation within 24 hours. Scheduled an appointment at the credit union. The credit union manager was a woman in her 50s named Patricia. She reviewed my documentation carefully. The LLC certificate, the EIN letter, my driver's license, a utility bill proving my address. Asked questions about the nature of my business, my expected transaction volume, whether I needed merchant services. Will you be the only person with access to this account? She asked. Yes. No additional signers, no authorized users. Just me. She made notes. Printed out signature cards, explained the account features, the monthly fees, the online banking setup. You'll have full access within 24 hours, she said. We'll send your debit card and checks to your mailing address within 7 to 10 business days. I transferred the $8,000 from the old forgotten account, added $3,000 from recent cash jobs. The business account started with $11,000. Then came the vendor notifications. I'd made a list of everyone who'd paid me directly in the past 5 years. Contractors, homeowners, property managers, building maintenance companies. The list had 37 names. I called each one personally, explained that I'd restructured my business, that my payment information had changed, that future invoices would come from Brentor Tile Services, LLC with new banking details. Most of them didn't care. They just wanted confirmation that I'd still show up and do good work. As long as you're still the one doing the installations, one contractor said, I don't care what you call your business or where you bank. A few asked questions. Why the change? Was everything okay? I kept my answers brief and professional. Simplifying operations, formalizing the structure, making things more efficient. Nobody pushed for details. I updated my invoicing templates, changed the header from Nathan Brentor, independent contractor, to Brentor Tile Services, LLC. Added the new bank routing information. Printed new business cards with the LLC name and my cell phone number. During the second week, I called Mason Hale about the Hillside Avenue project. He answered on the second ring, his voice friendly and energetic. Nate Brentor, Mike at the warehouse said you were asking about me. Nate, yeah, I've got a project I think you'd be perfect for. You have time to talk details? I've got time. We talked for 40 minutes. He explained the scope. A mixed-use building with 8 residential units and commercial space on the ground floor. Custom tile in every bathroom and kitchen. decorative work in the lobby and common areas, durable commercial-grade flooring in the retail spaces. Timeline? I asked. 6 months for the tile work. Maybe more if we expand to a second building next year. I'm budgeting for quality, not speed. What's the pay structure? I was thinking materials plus labor hourly, or we can do it as a contract bid if you prefer. Your choice. Contract bid. Give me 3 days to put together a proposal. Perfect. And Nate? He paused. I asked around, Checked with other contractors about who's reliable, who does quality work. Your name kept coming up. Multiple people said you're the guy they'd hire if they wanted it done right. After we hung up, I sat in my truck in the warehouse parking lot and stared at the phone. People trust your work. Not your company's work or your son's business management. My work. The installations I'd done with my own hands, my own back, my own 30 years of experience. I spent that evening writing the proposal. I measured everything twice, calculated materials down to the exact square footage, estimated labor hours based on similar projects I'd completed. The work broke down into phases: rough installation, detail work, finishing. I added contingency time for unexpected complications, for client changes, for the inevitable delays that come with any construction project. The total came to $84,000 for 6 months of work: materials, labor, overhead, and a reasonable profit margin. I sent it to Mason on Thursday morning. He responded by noon. Proposal approved. Contract coming to you this afternoon. Can you start week after next? I confirmed I could. The contract arrived by email at 2:30. I reviewed every page, every clause, every payment schedule detail. Arthur had taught me what to look for: liability limitations, payment terms, change order procedures, completion guarantees. Everything looked clean. I signed it electronically and returned it. The first deposit hit my new business account on Monday morning. 30% advance, as specified in the contract. $25,200. I checked the account balance 3 times to make sure it was real. Arthur called that afternoon. I saw the deposit. Mason's project? Contract signed Friday. Work starts in a week. Congratulations, Nate. You're officially in business. Again. Or still. However you want to think about it. I thought about it as I drove home that evening. Officially in business. The LLC was real. The account was active. The contracts were flowing. Everything Evan thought he controlled had been bypassed, rerouted, restructured into something he didn't know existed. And he still hadn't called. 30 days had passed since the card declined. 30 days since he'd locked me out and waited for me to surrender. I pulled into my driveway and looked at my house. The small, ordinary ranch that I'd paid for with 3 decades of tile work. The house that was mine, that had always been mine, regardless of whose name was on which bank account. 10 days left until the date I'd circled on the calendar. I went inside and made dinner, checked my email, reviewed the project schedule for Mason's job. Everything was in order. Everything was ready. The property had never had a gate before. Just a gravel driveway running from the street to the garage, worn down by decades of tires, weeds growing along the edges where the gravel met grass. I'd never seen the point of a gate. It seemed pretentious, unnecessary, the kind of thing people with actual money did, people who lived in neighborhoods with homeowners associations and architectural review boards and rules about what color you could paint your mailbox. But I'd been thinking about privacy lately, about control, about visible markers of ownership. More than that, I'd been thinking about thresholds, about the difference between public and private space, about who got to decide when those boundaries were crossed. I called a contractor on Tuesday morning, a guy named Dennis who specialized in fencing and gates, who I'd worked with years ago on a commercial property installation. He answered on the 3rd ring. Dennis, it's Nate Brentor. You remember me? Nate, of course. That medical building project, 5 years back? 6. Listen, I need some work done at my house. You have time this week to come look at a job? He came out that afternoon, pulled up in a white work van with his company logo on the side, clipboard already in hand when he got out. We walked the property line together, me explaining what I wanted, him making notes and measurements. You want something decorative or functional? He asked, pacing off the driveway width. Both. Iron, simple design, but solid, nothing flimsy. Electric opener? An intercom, with camera feed. Dennis nodded, sketching on his clipboard. I can do that. You want it to swing or slide? Which is more reliable? Slide, less mechanical stress. Handles wind better. Then slide. He walked to where the gate posts would need to go, knelt down, checked the ground composition. Concrete here is good. Won't need much prep work. You want remote access too? Control it from your phone? Yes. and I want to be able to see who's at the gate before I decide whether to open it. Camera feeds directly to an app. You can open, close, see live video, review recorded footage, all from your phone or computer. That's what I want. Dennis spent another 20 minutes measuring, photographing, making notes. Then he calculated on his phone and gave me a quote, $4,200 for materials and installation. How long to complete? I can have a crew here Monday. Work should take 4, maybe 5 days, depending on weather. Let's do it. I wrote him a check from the new business account. He looked at the company name, Brentor Tile Services, LLC, but didn't comment. The installation crew showed up Monday morning at 7:30. 3 guys in company shirts, a truck full of equipment, working efficiently and professionally. They started by marking the post locations with spray paint, then brought out a small excavator to dig the foundations. I watched from the porch as they worked. The rhythmic sound of the excavator, the careful measurements before pouring concrete, the way they checked and rechecked the level on each post before the concrete set. By Tuesday afternoon, the posts were solid and the frame was being assembled. Heavy iron rails, welded corners, a motor housing that fit cleanly into the design. The crew leader, a younger guy named Tom, explained each component as they installed it. Motor's rated for 1,000 cycles, he said, pointing to the mechanism. Should last you 10, 15 years, minimum. Intercom panel goes here by the street, camera mounts up top for best angle. You want a backup battery in case power goes out? Yes. Smart. I'll add it to the installation. By Wednesday evening, the gate was standing. Black iron, simple vertical bars, nothing fancy but nothing cheap-looking either. Tom tested the mechanism himself, opening and closing it a dozen times, adjusting the motor speed, fine-tuning the sensors that kept it from closing on an obstacle. You want me to set up any access codes? He asked on Thursday morning as they did the final programming. For other people who might need to get in? Just mine. What about family? Your son, maybe? Wife? My wife passed away years ago, and my son doesn't need a code. Tom didn't ask follow-up questions. Just programmed in my code, tested it, and showed me how to change it later if I wanted. Dennis came by Thursday afternoon to review the completed work. Tested everything himself. Showed me how to use the phone app, how to open the gate remotely, how to view the camera feed, how to review archived footage. Camera saves everything to cloud storage, he explained. 30 days of rolling footage. After that, it deletes automatically unless you save specific clips. Perfect. Any problems, you call me directly. I warranty all our work for 2 years. After they left, I stood in the driveway and tested the gate myself. Pressed the remote button, watched it slide open smoothly along its track, then close again. Solid, deliberate. No ambiguity about whether it was open or closed, about who controlled when it opened. That evening, I drove across town to a dealership I'd never been to before. Not the place where I'd bought my last truck 15 years ago. Somewhere Evan wouldn't know about, wouldn't think to check if he started asking questions. The lot was full of used vehicles. I walked past the newer models, the ones with digital displays and backup cameras and features I didn't need. Found what I was looking for in the third row, a 3-year-old pickup truck, dark blue, low mileage. Previous owner had been a small business contractor who'd upgraded to a larger vehicle. The salesman appeared within 30 seconds. Young guy, probably mid-20s, too bright smile and a handshake that tried too hard. Beautiful truck, he said. Just came in last week. Previous owner maintained it perfectly, full service records. I test drove it. The engine started smoothly, transmission shifted without hesitation, no rattles or leaks. Air conditioning worked, heat worked. Everything functioned the way it should. What are you asking? I said when we got back to the lot. 24.5, but I can work with you on that number. I'll give you 22,000, cash, today. His expression changed. The sales smile faltered. Cash? $100 bills. I can have it here in an hour. He went inside to talk to his manager. Came back 10 minutes later. Deal. Let me get the paperwork started. I drove to the bank, not the credit union with my business account, but my old personal bank, and withdrew $22,000 from the account Evan didn't control. The teller asked twice if I was sure. I was sure. Back at the dealership, I counted out the money in the finance office while the salesman and his manager watched. $220 bills arranged in neat stacks on the desk. The manager counted it himself. Twice. Then handed me the keys and the title. I drove the new truck home and parked it in the driveway. Positioned it carefully so it would be clearly visible from the street. From the gate, not to show off. Just to be clear about reality, about what was possible when you had independent income and independent control. My phone buzzed around 8 that evening, Evan's name on the screen, a text message. Dad, this silence is getting ridiculous. I'm coming over tomorrow to settle this. I read the message 3 times, saved it, didn't respond. I walked through the house, checking everything. The doors locked, the windows secure, everything in its place. Then I went to the garage and looked through my tool collection one more time. Everything organized, everything maintained, everything mine. Thursday morning, I drove to an electronics store and bought a security camera system. 4 cameras, motion detection, night vision, cloud storage. The kind of system that would capture everything clearly with timestamps and high-resolution detail. Back home, I spent most of the day installing them. 2 cameras at the gate mounted at different angles to eliminate blind spots. 1 camera at the front door, angled to capture both the porch and the driveway approach. 1 camera positioned to cover the full length of the driveway from gate to garage. Running the wires took time. Drilling mounting holes, configuring the network, testing each camera's field of view, adjusting angles until everything was perfect. My back complained, the pain climbing from a manageable 5 to a persistent 8 by late afternoon. But I pushed through it, took breaks when I had to, 2 pills at lunch, 2 more at dinner, kept working. By evening, all 4 cameras were operational. I downloaded the app to my phone and my laptop, checked the feeds, clear views of the gate, the driveway, the front door. The motion detection worked perfectly, sending alerts to my phone whenever something moved in frame. I tested it by walking through each camera's coverage area. My phone buzzed each time. A notification, a snapshot, a short video clip, all of it uploading automatically to cloud storage, time-stamped, and archived. I sat at the kitchen table and reviewed the camera angles on my laptop, played back the test footage. Everything was clear, everything was documented, no blind spots, no ambiguity. Arthur called just after 7. "Everything's filed," he said. "As of this morning, your LLC is officially registered with the state. Your business license is active with the city. All vendor payment information has been updated in my system. I've confirmed the routing changes with your major clients. They all have the new account numbers and they all know to start using them immediately." "Thank you, Arthur." I sent copies of all the documentation to your email. The new email address you set up through the business, not the old one your son might have access to. "I got them. Reviewed everything this afternoon between camera installations." "Camera installations?" "Security system. For the property." Arthur was quiet for a moment. "Nate, I want to be clear about something. What you've done here, structurally, legally, financially, it's all completely legitimate. It's all properly documented. It's all defensible. But it's also permanent. Once your son realizes what's happened, there's no walking it back, no negotiating, no compromise. Are you absolutely sure about this?" "I'm sure. He's going to be angry. Probably. He might try to fight it. Legally, I mean. Challenge the LLC formation or the account transfers or something. On what grounds? I don't know, but people get creative when they are desperate, when they realize they've lost control. Let him try. Everything's documented. Everything's legal. Everything's mine." Another pause. "Okay, then I'll be here if you need me, but I hope you don't need me. I hope this resolves quietly." After we hung up, I spent 2 hours reviewing every piece of documentation on my laptop. The LLC formation papers, filed and approved, the business registration certificate with the city, the new bank account statements showing the Mason deposit and the subsequent payments to vendors, the updated vendor agreements, all confirming the new payment routing, the security camera footage from today showing the installation process, time-stamped and archived. Everything was clean, everything was documented, everything was ready. At 9:15, my phone rang. Evan's number, not a text this time, an actual call. I let it go to voicemail. The voicemail was brief, his voice tight with controlled frustration. "Dad, I'm coming over tomorrow afternoon, 4 o'clock. We're going to talk about this and we're going to settle it. I don't care if you want to or not. This has gone on long enough." I deleted the voicemail. Then I sent a single text message to Laura. "Tell Evan he should call before showing up. Things have changed." Her response came back in less than a minute. "What's changed? He's really worried about you. We both are." I didn't reply. I made coffee and sat on the front porch in the old wooden rocker. The gate stood solid in the driveway, visible even in the evening darkness because of the small lights Tom's crew had installed. The new truck sat just beyond it, clean and functional and paid for. Friday morning, I reviewed everything one final time, logged into the security camera app and checked all 4 feeds, clear pictures, good angles, motion detection functioning, checked the LLC documentation folder on my laptop, everything in order, checked the business bank account balance, Mason's deposit minus the gate installation and the truck purchase, still leaving a healthy reserve. Everything was ready. At 3:45, I made fresh coffee and carried the mug out to the front porch, sat in the rocker, and waited. At 4:03, the intercom buzzer sounded. I watched through the camera feed on my phone as Evan's car appeared at the end of the street. The sedan he leased, silver, expensive, always spotlessly clean. Laura was in the passenger seat. I could see her face through the windshield, even at this distance, that uncertain expression she wore whenever she wasn't sure what was happening. The car slowed as it approached my property, then stopped completely. Evan got out of the driver's seat slowly. Not the confident, purposeful movement I'd grown accustomed to over the past 3 years. This was hesitant, uncertain. He stood beside his car for a long moment, staring at the gate. The iron gate that hadn't been there the last time he'd visited. Then he saw the truck, the new one, parked in the driveway beyond the gate where his view couldn't be blocked. I watched his posture change through the camera, shoulders tensing, head tilting slightly the way it did when he was trying to process something unexpected. Laura got out of the passenger side. She said something to him that I couldn't hear through the camera. He shook his head. They both stood there, staring at my property like it was unfamiliar territory. Finally, Evan approached the intercom panel. His hand hesitated over the call button, then pressed it. The buzzer sounded in the house. I let it ring twice before pressing the talk button. Evan. His voice came through the speaker, slightly distorted but clear enough. Dad? What's going on? What is all this? All what? The gate, the cameras, the truck. What's happening? Things have changed, I said calmly. Like I told Laura they would. A pause. Longer than it should have been. Can you open the gate? We need to talk. We can talk from here? Dad, this is ridiculous. Just open the gate. I don't think I will. Silence. Through the camera, I could see his expression shifting. Confusion giving way to frustration, frustration beginning to edge toward anger. What do you mean you don't think you will? This is your house. I'm your son. Open the gate. It is my house, I agreed. That's accurate. As for the rest, we can have that conversation from where you are. Laura had moved closer now. She was standing beside Evan, one hand on his arm. She looked worried. Not angry, just worried. Dad. Evan's voice had that controlled quality now, the tone he used when he was trying to manage a difficult situation, the tone he'd used with me more and more over the past few years. I don't know what's gotten into you, but this needs to stop. We came here to help you, to talk through whatever's bothering you, but I can't do that through an intercom. You cut off my access to money 31 days ago, I said. You changed my password. You locked me out of my own account. You did all of that without discussion, without warning, without consent. And then you waited for me to call you, to apologize, to beg. Isn't that right? Through the camera, I saw him glance at Laura. She was staring at him now, not at the gate, that worried expression deepening into something else. That was meant to teach you some responsibility, Evan said. You were being reckless with money, making poor decisions. I was trying to help you. Reckless, I repeated. What exactly was reckless? You know what I'm talking about. The unnecessary purchases, the refusal to plan properly, the attitude whenever I tried to give you advice. The attitude, I said, was me asking to access my own earnings. That's what you call an attitude problem? Dad, you're not well. The injury, the medications, the pain, you're not thinking clearly. That's why I've been managing things, to protect you. Protect me from what? From yourself. The words echoed through the intercom. Laura took a step back from him. I see, I said quietly. And that's why you locked me out? For my own protection? Yes, exactly. He sounded almost relieved, like I was finally understanding. I'm trying to help you, Dad, but you have to let me. You have to trust that I know what's best. I let that sit in the air for a moment. Let him hear his own words. Evan, I said finally, the account you control? I haven't touched it, haven't tried to access it, haven't filed any complaints or made any legal challenges. It's still completely under your authority. Okay, good. So you understand? I don't need it. Silence. What? I don't need that account. Never did, actually. All my real income, the contracts, the jobs, the actual work I've been doing for 30 years, it flows through different channels. Channels you don't have access to. Channels you don't know about. I could see his face changing on the camera, the confidence draining, confusion returning. That's not possible, he said. It's very possible. It's documented. Arthur Klein has all the paperwork if you'd like to review it, or you can check with the bank yourself. I've formalized my business structure. Brentor Tile Services, LLC, registered 3 weeks ago. All income now routes through a business account that you have no access to, no authority over, and no knowledge of. Laura was staring at Evan now with an expression I couldn't quite read through the camera. You can't just, he started. I already did. Took about 3 weeks once I stopped waiting for your permission. This is insane. You're being completely irrational. Actually, I'm being very rational. Methodical, even. I've reviewed all my old contracts. The ones from before you started helping me. Turns out I've been operating as an independent contractor for decades. Had my own business account that I'd forgotten about. Had my own client relationships that never involved you. All I did was formalize what was already there. He was shaking his head. The gate, he said, his voice quieter now. The cameras, the truck. Where did you get the money for all this? From working, from the Mason Hale project. 6 months of steady contracts starting next week. $84,000 agreement. First payment already deposited. Mason Hale? I don't know any Mason Hale. Exactly, I said. You don't know him. You don't know Mike at the warehouse. You don't know any of the contractors who've been calling me directly for years. You know how to manage an account, Evan. You never learned how to manage relationships. Clients don't call you. Suppliers don't respect you. You thought controlling money meant controlling everything, but money only matters if the other person needs it. The silence stretched. Through the camera, I watched him standing there, staring at the gate, his whole body language changing, the confidence gone. The authority evaporated. Just confusion and something that might have been fear. So what now? He asked finally, his voice barely audible through the intercom. Now you leave, I said simply. The account you control, keep it. I told you I don't need it. The house is paid off. Has been for 8 years, my business is reestablished, my income is independent. You have no access to anything that matters. I'm your son. You are, I agreed. And when you remember what that means, when you remember respect, when you remember that help doesn't come with ownership, when you remember that your father is a person and not a problem to be managed, maybe we'll talk again, but not today. Laura pulled at his arm. He resisted for a moment, then let her lead him back toward the car. I watched through the camera as they got in, as Evan sat behind the wheel without starting the engine, as his head dropped forward, hands gripping the steering wheel. Finally, after what felt like minutes, but was probably only seconds, he started the car. They drove away. I pressed the button to close the gate. It slid along its track, smooth and solid and final. The camera feed showed an empty street. No car, no people, just asphalt and the beginning of sunset shadows. I sat on the porch and finished my coffee. It had gone cold, but I drank it anyway. 31 days ago, my card had declined at a grocery store. 31 days ago, I'd discovered my son had locked me out of my own account, had assumed I'd come crawling back within hours, had believed I was broken and dependent and powerless. He'd been wrong about all of it. The gate stood closed, the cameras recorded, the new truck sat in the driveway, and in my business account, $84,000 in contracted work waited to be earned.